You know, here in Kyoto, in this lovely hall, and a lot of well-dressed people carrying iPhones, or if you go to Osaka and you see people with their Louis Vuitton, everything looks fine. And of course, it is fine. Japan's a very wealthy country with one of the strongest economies in the world. But there is a problem, and it's called depopulation. If you travel a little bit outside the cities, like this, what we call the shutter towns. And the farther you go into the countryside, the more severe it is because there's an inequality. Japan is losing population, but not equally. The big cities are actually thriving. Small cities are in big trouble. In fact, you see something like this, houses broken down, streets with nobody walking on them. And in very little towns, it's quite severe. We did a styrofoam model of this little fishing village in the inland sea. And we painted the houses where people are living in red. Well, you can see that this town is about to die. Now, the Japanese government has been aware that there's a problem, but unfortunately, the policy for 50 years was building things. Let's cover the country in concrete. Let's do something about the rivers, build highways, dams, turn even small streams into little chutes. Every year, add another patch. Here you can see what happened last year and what's going on this year. Huge highways that are built for no particular purpose. You can see on this one, which costs billions of dollars, no traffic at all. And it wasn't just civil engineering, it was also monument building. The idea was if you just could cover the whole town in concrete, that would somehow make it modern and it would thrive. They built museums like this one that drove this poor little town into bankruptcy. Or this, the gold tower that nobody knows what to do with. And I love this mosque-like, this isn't Iraq, this is Tsushima, a little town of 1,500 people where they spent $20 million to build something like this. And what happened is, in the meantime, sadly, it didn't work. The people left the villages. Agriculture collapsed, forestry collapsed. And so then they're pouring more concrete in. So is there not another way? So here I want to step back and become a little personal. I came to Japan as a little boy in 1964 with my family, and that's almost 50 years ago. And then later, when I was in college, I hitchhiked all over Japan, and like a lot of young people, I was looking for my Shangri-La, and I was really lucky because I found it. And it's this magic place called Iya, which is a very distant, remote part of Japan. It's in the mountains of Shikoku. Shikoku to this day is really the least visited of the big 4 islands of Japan. And even within Shikoku, Iya is deep in the hills. This is where the Heikei warriors escaped in the 12th century. It was so remote. And you can see, sometimes they call it Japan's Grand Canyon. And I love this place, and then I noticed back in the 70s that it was already depopulated. There were abandoned houses all over the place. And I thought, gosh, I'm a poor student, but I could maybe own one of these. So I started looking around, and I found this, which I bought in 1973. We named the house Chiori. And I talked to the villagers, and they sold it to me for $1,500, the land. The house was junk, worthless. So I got the house for free. But actually, this house is 300 years old. And it's more than 300 years old. It's actually thousands of years old, the lifestyle here, because this goes back before the Japan we think we know, before tatami and before rice. And you see these wooden floors. There's a floor hearth, the idori floor hearth, which is like having a campfire in the middle of your living room. But the smoke comes out of it, and it turns everything black. And so even the ceiling is black. We rethatched the house over the years, but of course, originally I had no money at all, couldn't even afford thatch, so we got old thatch from the house they were tearing down. And you can see I look like I came out of all sooty old thatch coming out of a coal mine. The thing about this house, though, is that fast forward decades, we got tens of thousands of visitors. So much so that our prefecture, which is called Tokushima, looked at their statistics and they said, oh, there are all these foreigners coming to Tokushima. Why? Oh, they're going to Iya, but why? Well, they're going to this place called Shiori. Where? What? So they called us up and they said, well, why? You don't have a big gold tower and you don't have a huge kange horu and you don't have a highway and you don't have all these great things. What do they come for? And I said, well, it's what I call the appeal of nothing special. And that's actually pretty big. Actually, our slogan in Iya today is, Nani mo nai ga aru. And what that means is, for example, if you're traveling and you go to Paris, and of course you want to see the Louvre and you see Notre Dame, but once you've done that, the joy of Paris is walking the little back streets, taking in the air. That's the true appeal of a place. And of course, that's what people come to Iya for. This is the magic. Well, I started thinking, my God, this country is covered with tens of thousands of abandoned houses, some of them, many, thousands of them even better than Shiori. Couldn't we do this in other places? So I started doing regional projects. And one of the first ones I did is in this little island called Ojika. And Ojika is, I call it the Iya on the sea, because it's even harder to get to than Iya. It's way off the coast of Kyushu. And this was so hard to get to that this is where the hidden Christians escaped. When Christianity was banned, they went on this island and built their little church, and they hid there, practiced there for 300 years until the ban was lifted. But this town is in terrible shape. They too are losing population. They've built all the museums and highways. They did all that, and it didn't work. So we got together with the town, and we came up with a project to build, redo 7 old houses and 1 restaurant. But of course, when we find the houses, you know, the floor is falling in and the roof is leaking. They're a mess, but they can indeed be fixed up, as you can see from this restored Japanese traditional Zashiki. But here's where I want to kind of step back for a minute and just say, I'm not a curator, I'm not a gakugein, and I'm not a professor, and I'm not trying to say this is how it was in Edo and this is how it was in Meiji. I'm not interested in making a shirokan, you know, some kind of a showpiece. What I want to do is bring these houses into the modern age, because that's the only way that they can live. And so we have this, what you don't see in this photo is under that tatami is redone wiring, completely redone plumbing, insulation, lighting, heating, cooling, all those things that make it possible for modern people to actually be there. And you have to do more than just this, because modern Japanese don't sit on the tatami anymore, right? So how can you enjoy a beautiful old house in the way that fits your modern lifestyle? Well, next to that tatami room, we built this Western sunken living room, which was maybe too successful because the people just hang around here and they never actually go into that beautiful Zashiki. And there are puzzles, always, with these houses. They told me, Alex, you can't build a table here because of this column. Well, we built it. The other thing I try to do is what I call a modern intervention. And by that I mean valuing the traditional space, but let's do something that's completely new and modern about it, and really make people feel that they are in the now, not just in the past. So here was the long room that was going to become the restaurant. What we did is we brought in this 7-meter long table. We call it the long table. Long table for a long room. You can actually sit under there. So you can put your legs down and sit. And it turned this place, although it's an old space, into a very new space. This is our restaurant in Ojika at night. Back in Iya, which has exactly the same problems, we're doing a project with the town, and we're doing 8 houses there. And we started with a village, a hamlet called Ochiai, which is about maybe a 20-minute drive from my place. And it's way up. You can get vertigo just by standing there. And our very first house was this one, which is, you take one look and want to give up, really. But it's 200 years old. It has an incredible structure. So what do? Well, it's leaning, so it has to be straightened. You take it down to its original structure. rebuild the roof and rethatch. And here's another thing I want to say. People think that restoring these houses is miyadaiku, you know, it's traditional carpentry all the way. But that's not my approach. We're using thatch because it's part of the history and the culture of Iya, but we're also using water-retardant material for the roof. This is what it looks outside. Here you can see where the insulation is going on the inside. When the house is done, you have this traditional Iya-type floor with the floor hearth. You have the view, this incredible view over that valley. But right next to it, you've got a place with a kitchen, a table and chair. You can have your morning coffee. You can be at home. This is what we started with. This is what we ended with. And you can see it's the same house. We took it from being unlivable to being livable. I've, in the meantime, done dozens of houses all over this country. And the funny thing is that my own house was pretty much the last one. And we finally got around to it last year. So this is Chiori as it had been. We took off the roof. We rethatched. We called in the thatcher. And here again, we went from this to this. And I love my beautiful new thatched roof. But I think what I love maybe more are my beautiful double-paned glass windows. Because what that means is we can sit in this house and watch the snow coming down and be in comfort. Here's the restored living room, which looks exactly like the old living room, but under those floors is underfloor heating. We have a proper kitchen. We've put in proper toilets. This is maybe the most important photograph you'll see today. And the bath. And the thing about it is, why do all this? I'm not really here to talk about let's fix up some pretty houses. That's not really the aim. The aim is what can we do about these troubled regional towns? And we were told when we did it in Ojika, when we did it in Iya, they said, but why would people don't come to these places? They won't come. Well, I'm happy to say that this summer, in both Ojika and Iya, we had 90% occupancy. It basically means they were full all summer, which is even better than Kyoto. And it's amazed us. We didn't think that would happen, and especially because when I started, I was aiming at the foreigners. Because they said, Alex, the Japanese don't travel this way. You know, they'll never come. I said, never mind, we'll get the foreign travelers. But it turns out that in Iya, we're at 70%. In Ojika, almost 100% Japanese, which means that the Japanese would love to see their natural environment. They would love to go to these old towns. They just don't want to suffer. But when it's provided, they will come, and they do. And so what this means is it creates a new industry. Toru here, who manages our project in Iya, he's from Shizuoka. The young guy, they're hundreds of kilometers from Iya, but he moved here. It was unthinkable. Young people would never move into Iya. But not only him, but we've got others coming now. Miss Nakaishi, she's holding our Iya tofu. They call it Iwa tofu, rock tofu, because you can actually hold it with a rope. Well, this was dying out. No, but there was no use for it. Now what happens when you get tourists coming in, they want to try the local food. They want to take something home as a souvenir. So it's come alive again. Back in Ojika, here's our long table. First, the visitors had parties, and then the locals started having parties. And all of this brings money in, and it means that they're not stuck. They don't have to reach out to the government again and concrete another river and build another empty museum. There is a new industry for these places. You know, Japan is so rich. The natural environment, the fantastic traditional culture, the wealth that's of beauty and of materials and of a spirit of lifestyle that you find in these old places, it's there and it can be saved. And I think we've found a way to go forward. Thank you very much.